Okay, so this is a plant cell. And a plant cell is a little bit different than an animal cell because it has a very stiff outer wall called a cell wall. Animal cells have cellular membranes, which are more like skin of jello or something, where things can go in and out of them very, very easily. So the cell wall gives plants its shape. That's why you have trees that can stand up. You have leaves that keep their shape. It's all because of the rigid cell wall that it has. Okay, now what you have is the main nerve center of a cell. This is what we would call the nucleus. And inside the nucleus, there's chromatin. Okay, and we don't really need to get into that, but I wanted to draw that just because it looks more like a creepy eyeball this way. The nucleus is like the brain of the cell, and it is what controls all the functions. And the nucleolus is what has the DNA, and it makes something that we'll talk about later called ribosomes. Okay. Now, next to the nucleus, there are two types of material. There's the yellow is the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and the red is the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. You just need to know that it's the endoplasmic reticulum, and it's basically, it functions like something, we could call it the ER. Basically, it's like a transport system. It goes proteins and ribosomes to other parts of the cell. Think of it kind of like the circulatory system. Okay. Now, in a plant cell, they have something called a central vacuole, and the central vacuole can have a huge portion of the volume of that cell in water. If you think about it, when plants don't get enough water, their leaves wilt. Okay, so the central vacuole stores that water, and it helps kind of keep the cell stiff because it's full of water. When it runs out of some of that water, that's when it starts to wilt, because the cells kind of collapse in on itself because they don't have that water pressure and they're pushing outward and keeping the cell rigid. Okay, the Golgi apparatus, it takes proteins from the endoplasmic reticulum, and it basically tells it what to do. It gives them specific jobs to do. Okay, and that one's a tricky one as well. Okay, now this is the big one. You're going to see these in plant cells and animal cells. This is mitochondria, or mitochondrion. Okay, it is the powerhouse, the battery of a cell. It breaks down sugar that a plant produces during photosynthesis, and it makes something called ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. And that is the currency that all cells use to make energy for their biological functions. ATP is how we have functional cells, because our cells can't just use sugar. They have to break it down into something else, just like a telephone has a certain type of data that it uses, and a light bulb has a different type of data that it gets electricity instead of just Wi-Fi signals and things like that. What makes a plant really special is this part right here called the chloroplast. And the chloroplast is what helps to make that sugar during the photosynthetic process. Okay, that is a huge portion of how plants survive with those chloroplasts. And you can find a whole bunch of them in there. For this example, I just did two, just like I did two mitochondria. Now, these little dots that you're seeing here, these are the tiniest organelles that you'll see in a cell, and they're called ribosomes, and they take amino acids and they make proteins out of them. Okay, so those are called ribosomes. All right. A lot of these, I just want you to know the functions of them. You don't have to specifically know exactly what each of those do. Okay. And now you can kind of see that I'm kind of filling in everything around there. Inside the cell is a jelly-like substance called cytoplasm, and it keeps all the cell parts floating in the cytoplasm, and it's kind of like, think of it like fruit salad in jello, like grapes and oranges and stuff all floating in there. It gives that cell protection inside it to keep it from breaking apart. Okay, and all those organelles float inside that cytoplasm, and that is a plant cell. Now later on we're going to talk about animal cells, and there will be some things that are different.